right, welcome back to So There I Was. I'm your host again, Travis Womack. Today's guest is Mark Schneider, coming to us from the grand place of Australia. We are literally 12 hours apart from each other. Pretty awesome. Mark's a retired Navy, a little bit of enlisted time, a little bit of limited duty officer time, and then all of it nuclear. And I'll stop there because if I keep talking about nuclear and things, I'm way above my pay grade. So, Mark, welcome to the show.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. I did do 20 years, 4 months, and 2 days. Thanks, DD 214, for
No,
that
it's counting.
specific level of knowledge. Yeah, I know it's counting, right? I did exactly the minimum amount you needed as an officer in my career field to get the pension, which is exactly
Oh
10
yeah,
years. Otherwise, yeah,
you
we don't.
enlisted.
We yeah. So I did start out enlisted. I made it all the way up to chief petty officer for our Army friends at Sergeant First Class. Before I crossed over to the
Thank you for
dark side,
clarifying
had
that.
my yeah had my spine removed, as I like to joke. Um, it's
Oh
somewhat
yeah.
painful. I am unique in that I am the only combat nuclear limited duty officer, and that I actually spent a year as a chief deployed to the Middle East, supporting the Army in Operation Iraqi Freedom. So I'm the only one in the
Wow.
thousands of us that have done that. There's about 500 active duty nuclear limited duty officers. Let me give a quick background on what a limited duty officer is.
Please.
So it's similar to like a warrant officer, but instead of being commissioned as a warrant officer, we're commissioned as an ensign, second lieutenant, for my Army friends, or actually every other service. And then we are limited in that your enlisted job determines your officer job. And then we're also limited. The highest rank we can achieve is '06 captain. I retired as a lieutenant '03, because the Navy ranks can't match the Army ranks, right? So
No,
we're going to make it
definitely
really
not.
confusing.
That'd be too
So
much sense.
yeah,
Technically,
um,
you think the Army ranks would be easier because the Navy was a big thing before the country was founded. Anyways,
yeah. Well, I mean, I think the first Army unit was actually a National Guard unit of Massachusetts, like
yeah,
1600s or something like that.
yeah.
So the Army is the oldest service, so the Army gets the credit for that. Um, but I mean, we're about to celebrate the 250th birthday uh,
For
for
everybody.
the yeah. Well,
Yeah,
for the three services that count, right?
yeah.
The Army just had theirs, Navy has theirs next month, and then the Marines have theirs in
Yeah.
November. And then we won't talk about the redheaded stepchild
Well,
of the
Air Force just did, is it 70 years? I think it's 70.
they're 47,
80.
so they just
Anyway.
did.
Yeah, okay,
Yeah,
okay. So it's coming up on a key
yeah.
number for them. So
And so do you mind if we tell jokes? Because I have a great
always,
joke that
absolutely.
describes service. Have you heard this? The service is described as children. So this
Okay.
is a good one if you haven't heard it. All right.
I'm not.
So Uncle Sam and Lady Liberty, they got married, and they had three children together. The first and the biggest is Army, right? And then the second child, went off and just as soon as he turned 18, went and left the world. That's Navy. The youngest and the smallest, and always trying to prove to the biggest brother that he's as good. Well, that's Marine Corps.
I like it.
Well, unfortunately, Uncle Sam and Lady Liberty got divorced, and Lady Liberty got remarried, and she had a child that got all the best toys, right? And we call that Air Force. And then later in life, she had another child that may have some chromosomal defects, and we call that Space Force. And then Uncle Sam got remarried and had a redheaded stepchild, and we call that Coast Guard. So
I like it. I like it. Now all I
yeah.
do is figure out who the step parents are.
Yeah, that's true. I
That'd be
got to
great.
figure that out next time.
That'd be great.
So,
It's
yeah,
it's so accurate though.
yeah, it is.
So
So,
my most of my family, the World War II generation and stuff, they were all Navy. So whenever I joined the Army, they were like, "What are you doing?" I was like, "I'm 6'4". Those ships are not designed for me. I promise you. I'll spend my whole life just ducked down
yeah.
trying to get through things, and I'll pass."
So the two tallest people I served with on a submarine, one was 6'8", and he was a missile technician that showed up about 6 months after I had been on the boat. And he literally, remember those little green Skillcraft notebooks, little small
Mhm.
ones?
Oh yeah.
Every time he hit his head, he would log it. And he filled up the notebook in a month. And then I had an XO that was right around 7 feet tall, and there were two places on the boat that he could stand up straight. which was and I was on ballistic missile submarines, which are the big ones, right?
Mm-hmm.
So and he'd served on a fast attack submarine at one point, which is like literally
Looks,
half
yeah.
the size. Well, actually, a third of the size when you go by volume. But yeah, it's like, man, I don't know how. I mean,
Mm-mm.
I'm 6 feet tall, and walking down this compartment third level, which is like the major transit passageway
Mm-hmm.
from the forward compartment to the engine room. I literally had to cock my head so I didn't hit pipe hangers all the way
Perfect.
down. So
No,
yeah.
that right there is that's why I wasn't that's why I was in the Navy. That's why I wasn't a tanker. Is I was like, nope,
Yeah.
I already have enough back problems from playing basketball and everything else. Then I jumped out of planes for a living. I'm like, I didn't think this story very good.
Well,
So,
well, you know the greatest line from We Were Soldiers, right?
well, there's a whole bunch of them
It's
there, but
Well, it's when they're in the middle of the firefight,
uh,
and the sergeant major looks over at the colonel, and he goes, "Kind of makes you wish you had joined submarines, doesn't it?"
that's true. So, I had a guy on the
So,
show. Gosh, now 2 or 3 years ago. He was on the Alabama for almost his whole career, but he was on the Alabama. They just got home or report on September 10th, like that
oh
night,
wow,
and then the entire they got what's it called, pass, I guess. They all and he was on ship duty, he said, and then like all of a sudden everybody's coming back early that
okay.
morning, and he's like, "What's going on?" I was like, "We're going back out September 11th," and I'm like, "Yeah, the best place for that boat to be is not at port." So
So, and I hate to do this to your viewers, but
yeah.
who was he? Because I served on Alabama from '04 to '06.
Neil Stratham.
I
Uh,
Yes, I
yeah,
know him.
yeah. So
That's wild. Yeah, I mean it's been a while. I mean it's
yeah,
funny you meet these
it's
people,
a small
you
small
interact
world
with.
in
Yeah,
the nuclear submarine world. So
yeah. There's about 20,000 active duty submariners, and there's about 20,000 active duty nuclear trained sailors.
right.
Um, because we also staff our aircraft carriers.
Hmm.
That's actually one thing that's kind of interesting about going limit as a enlisted guy. I would only serve on submarines.
Right.
But as an officer, I could do. I was more on carriers than I was on submarines,
Hmm.
but I did both. Um, so the typical career path once we get our commission is that we'll go typically to an aircraft carrier for a few years to be a technical assistant, and then we may go to our submarine tenders, or we'll go to a lot of us will go into like when we initially man a nuclear submarine, the first four division officers, we call it, which is like your equivalent of a
Right.
platoon
Right.
leader,
Right.
um, is staffed by limited duty officers because we're establishing the programs. We know how shipyards work. We're maintenance technical experts.
Right.
And so we basically set the program. And hardest thing I've ever done is turn over to a kid who just came out of college.
There you go. Please don't break my boat.
Right. Right. So I was, so my job, I was the reactor controls assistant, and was a electronic technician chief petty officer, which staffed and managed that equipment and those personnel. And so I had 16 years of 17 years of experience turning over to this young kid. And I'm like, literally like, you have to ask questions and
Lots of them.
it doesn't matter. I will never say that you're stupid. Please ask questions. I said, you have 0 days of experience in this. I have
Yeah.
17 years of experience in this. If you don't ask questions, I don't know, because I've literally forgotten more than you know. And I
Yeah.
don't mean that to be facetious, but,
Yeah.
and like he was struggling and failing. And it was like, why haven't you taught him this? I'm like, I did teach him all these
Yeah.
things. I did teach him the basics. And I told him, if he ever has any questions, come to me and I will, and I was, from an officer perspective, I was known as a hugger. Like
Yeah.
I wasn't the guy. I mean, I could yell.
It's the Navy.
I
You
mean,
gotta
I
be
had the
careful.
ability.
Sorry.
Yeah. But when it came to teaching people, I was the guy that literally, like when we're early in the construction process, and I feel bad for the way that we staff these, is that we take all the electronics technicians, the electricians mates, and then our senior machinists, our senior mechanics, and we all get, and then the officers and all the chiefs, we all go up to New York, and we get taught by the engineers that design the nuclear reactor, and then we come back down, and then all the junior mechanics that come straight from school show up. So literally, they have all these really smart guys that just got taught by the engineers, and they have this great level of knowledge, and then they're trying to catch up.
Hmm.
and they just came out of school, right? So they're failing miserably. And I literally would take my hour. We had a combination of lunch and PT while we were. This is before we started standing watch, so we're like literally could walk down to the boat, look at things, and I would grab them into my office, and we would do, I would do their help with their qualifications and their training, and I was just like, it was a, hour and a half huddle every single lunch. I'd say, bring your lunches, come in, we're sitting here. And the only reason why they got qualified is because I literally took the time to teach them the equipment, that because the electronics is like way over their heads for the most part, but they had to understand it to a basic
Right.
level. And so I was just so willing to take that. I'm like sitting here with this brand new ensign, and I'm like, you got to ask me questions, man. Like
Hmm.
I can't read your mind. And that was always that was so frustrating to
Oh
me.
yeah. I,
Um, yeah.
I can only imagine that. I mean, it's always, I think every branch struggles with getting, 22-year-old officers. And, school's great, you're smart and you've done some stuff as far as like some training wise, but then you get there for real. I was going through OCS, I'm sure whenever the commissioning thing you went through, um, it was painful because you had kids that went straight from college without ROTC, and and they show up to OCS and their army experience is basic training, and
Yeah.
and then they go to OCS and you're like, all right, so you've got a total of like 9 weeks of army knowledge, and so you're still learning the ranks and how to march a little bit, and now we're going into these courses of like leadership, and I remember I about lost my mind one day. I told him, I was like, guys, it's like my platoon, we had us four E6s. Us four combined was like 30 years of, of combat experience. It was like you have nothing. It's like you're showing up and like you have to be able to humble yourself a little bit and be willing to say, you know what, I don't know everything and I have questions. And there's opportunities to earn respect or trust and all the above. It's a challenge. I can only imagine the Navy is different because officers are different in the Navy because the quantity is completely because the Army is super officer heavy. I mean, obviously there's more enlisted than there are officers, but like the quantity overall is like ridiculous compared to the Navy, like per
Yeah,
capita.
I'm not sure how the Navy's laid out. I mean, I know that like when you get to like squadrons, like flight squadrons,
Right.
they're very officer heavy.
Yeah.
Um, but like a submarine, it's about 10% of the crew is
Right.
officers.
Right. That's
Yeah, and so that's pretty normal. One of the things that's interesting is you're talking about the years of experience. So when you staff a new construction submarine with all these prior enlisted officers that have at least 8 years or more, right? So
right.
I showed up with 14 years of experience, and I had more sea time, and this was than my commanding officer did,
Wow.
right? So I had more experience afloat than my CO did, right? Which means I had more than the XO, more than the engineer. That like
Right.
so you're equivalent of a company commanders, you're equivalent, of the battalion XO and the battalion commander, right? I had more experience than all of them. And by the way, I was one of four, and all of us
Yeah.
had about we all were on at least third sea tour or third
Yeah.
nuclear, we it was considered a sea tour. That's the term we use.
Right.
Is it whenever you're assigned to a vessel, even though that vessel it saw 48 hours of water before I left.
Yeah.
Um, so it's really neat. Like going to when I showed up to USS Washington, it was literally in pieces, and not all of it was in the shipyard. It was a lot of it was up in Connecticut. I was down in Virginia, and so it's literally in pieces. You watch them assemble it, and we're
That's awesome.
literally giant Lego erector sets or whatever. But we're working side by side with the shipyard. So that was really kind of a neat thing. And I don't know if the Army has the equipment thing where you're
New.
literally working side by side with your contractors,
New. I wish we did. It'd be
testing
cool.
this equipment.
It'd be cool if we could get with who is it? Oshkosh and Dynamic General Dynamics that makes the tank. That'd be awesome if we could do
Yeah.
something like that to be on the ground and like this is how the turret's supposed to work. Wait a minute, you can unwind this thing? Yeah, like it's
Yeah.
we had that with radios. I know Harris radio or electronics, whatever the heck their branding is, but we sent a guy to I think it was New York for like 3 or 4 weeks. And he was just one, I'm sure you have plenty of guys that are just like he's just smarter than everybody else in the room. And we sent this kid out there. He's like 21, 22 years old, enlisted kid. He came back MacGyver. That's the only way to describe it. I mean, it was like he understood that radio better than everybody else, like, and then some. And we're like, teach us how to do this, like, because if we lose comms and we're on foot in Afghanistan, this is a problem, and so our radio knowledge just skyrocketed for our whole platoon because, and then it bled over into the company, and like, at the end of that, that overlap, even the youngest private had better knowledge than he ever would have. So it was like this one kid who's willing to talk, and so, man, we should have sent like 10 kids. We could have had greatly increased the Army's knowledge of radios and stuff. So I wish we had that. It'd be awesome to have some kind of method to see how things work.
It's funny because it actually in the U.S. Navy, in the nuclear Navy, we have an issue with exam cheating.
Mm-hmm.
And it's actually, I believe, this is the Mark Schneider take on it, is that it's a product of the way we do new construction.
Mm-hmm.
Is it because you have this group of people that are literally, that are taught by the engineers on how the nuclear reactor works and all the systems associated with it. They see the systems being built like normally the main seawater pumps are so tight you have to like crawl to get to them.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So it's really hard to get down to them. But we literally get to walk up there and they bring in the engine room raft. And you could see them in 3-dimensional space, and you walk at the scaffolding to look at them. And so you get to see everything operating in, it's not in that tight confined space. And then you see it loaded in there. And, and by the way, while this is all going on, you're also testing these systems. So you're operating valves and switches and things in manners that you've never done. And you're doing procedures that will be done once. Right. Once for the entire 33-year life of the submarine.
Right.
And so you're doing these, it's the first time it's ever done. And so like your list of assumptions in your procedures are way different than when you're normally operating because you don't know what this is going to be. We haven't proven the nuclear reactor yet. So the first time that you bring this reactor online, you don't know when it's going to be, and you have a physicist with you. It's like, so this equipment so well. So this first cadre of people, you have these 4 prior enlisted officers, and they're always prior enlisted officers that are working side by side with the crew trained by an engineer, working side by side with our shipbuilders. And then the next group of the first, and they get done with that. The enlisted is from an enlisted perspective. Mm-hmm. The next cadre of enlisted show up. And the way the Navy does their exams for our continuing training exams for our nuclear is that a 70% is passing, 80% is what you're shooting for. Well, these guys are scoring 95s on your first test, just because they know it better than anyone. And so then then 95 becomes the new 80. Right. Because you have to write it to 80. And then they can train the next group and they do okay, but because they're getting trained directly. And then the third iteration, they're struggling and they're failing. Right. And then it's the fourth iteration where now they're trying to use crib sheets and they're going to the toilet to go find where they've got hidden study notes and all that. And then they're exam cheating. That's a big challenge because the nuclear Navy is not real good does not do a real good job of saying, hey, we've written this too hard. Let's back off.
Right.
They just continue to make them harder and harder.
Right.
And then there's the big transition from the construction mentality to operating. Right. It's a very big difference when, hey, we had a problem. Let's get the plant in a safe condition. We're good. Versus, hey, we had a problem. If we don't continue propulsion and get the ship to the surface, we're going to go to the bottom. Right. That's a big mentality shift. So the Navy does a pretty
significant oh crap moment right there.
Yeah.
difference of things. That's crazy. You mentioned a while ago about being a company size. So, but nuclear subs are done by 06s. Right.
It depends. So we have most of the submarines are 05s.
05. Okay.
Yeah, and then we have 4 submarines that they have 2 crews, so there's 8 06 billets.
Right.
And those are our ballistic missile submarines because they do joint operations. Yeah. So they can have a contingent of special forces on board. Right. So they felt they became a major command. Right. They used to be 06s. So like when you watch Crimson Tide.
Right. I bet
Gene Hackman.
90s. Right.
Yeah, because it used to be that the ballistic missile submarines were a twilight tour for 06s that were not going to make admiral. And so as the fleet shrank and they reduced the number of billets for 06s, they made those back to being 05s, or they made them 05 billets. because my COs on USS Michigan and USS Alabama were O5s, but then they made the first four Elizabeth submarines, Ohio, Michigan, Florida, Georgia,
Right.
into 06 billets, which I still love that the Navy didn't realize that they were memeing themselves when they selected the names of the ships, because it's, oh my fucking God, OMFG, Ohio, Michigan, Florida, Georgia, in that order. They meme themselves in the 70s without realizing
they
it.
make this stuff so sometimes it's just too easy. Like before we had all these fun little LOLs and BRBs and everything else.
Yeah.
That's great. Sorry, that makes my
Yes.
day. No, I think it's interesting because I love talking to the other branches on this show because like as an '03, I retired as an '04, but majority of my time was '03. And like my responsibility when I was in command and my role and all these things compared to like an '03 in the Navy, like you can run a ship, a part of like maybe I don't know whether the destroyers are or the smaller than that. Like there's some billets that are '03 or '04 billets, I think, aren't they? Or am I way off?
Uh, So no, you're not way off. Yeah, so there are we have some like our minesweepers and our postal control or
Yeah.
our patrol boats are an O4 command.
Right.
It's an early command. But most command billets are O5s, and there's certain that are O6s.
Okay.
So yeah, so the that's just kind of the nature of it. But like destroyers are O5s.
Right.
Destroyers also do a lot of what's known as a fleet up. So the O5 will show up as the XO, and then about 18 months later becomes the CO.
Swap in. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's kind of how those work. And then there are some are they show up and they do 2-year tours in XO and then leave, and they come back later and they qualify for command.
Yeah.
The surface fleets I don't know super great.
Yeah.
I do know the submarine force because that's what I spent most of my time in. But yeah, it's definitely interesting. Now the Coast Guard, and because when I retired, I went and worked at a power station. Then I worked for the U.S. Coast Guard. Coast Guard has commands all the way down to E8s.
Yeah,
they have command.
They have those little the speedboats and stuff like that. That's got to go. So
yes. So anything that is 65 feet or longer in the Coast Guard is classified as a cutter and has a permanent crew assigned and has a commanding officer. And but like the fast response cutters,
right?
They have a crew of 20 with an O3 CO and then 3 officers, like an O2 XO and then like 2 O1s.
Interesting.
Assigned to them. So yeah. So they have
my Coast Guard knowledge is like nothing.
Yeah, that's an interesting. They're an interesting service. I enjoyed them because they would like to talk about how they are better than the Navy at a lot of things. And one of my favorite Coast Guard stories is they'd be like, yeah. So they would come up to me and they'd be like, "Hey, why is it that you'll spend 4 years importing an aircraft carrier, but we go out to sea every other month, and we go out to sea for a month at a time and all that?" And I looked at him and I go, "All right, so let me ask you, when you go out to sea every month, how often do you pull in to refuel?" He goes, "Well, every week." I said, "Well, that aircraft carrier that's in port for 4 years, it's refueling for the first time and the only time."
Yeah.
And they go, what do you mean? I said, "Its nuclear reactors only require refueling once." I'm like, "What?" I said, when they're operational, it's typically 9 months out of the year that they're gone from home port. So
wow,
the ship spends a lot more time at sea. I mean, I did 3 years on Abraham Lincoln, and of the 18 months before I pulled it into the shipyard, I was in port maybe 60 days,
wow.
like out to sea all the time. And it was like, we did 2 deployments, or I finished up 1 deployment, came in, we did workups, and then we went out and we did a 10-month deployment. And I mean, it's like people just, you don't understand. It's like, this is a very different animal compared to what you do. And then I also described that to my Navy friends going, "Hey, the Coast Guard, while they don't go out to sea for long periods of time, by the way, they also, every person on board the vessel, they're all firefighters. They don't have a luxury of, everyone's on there, right? It's like everyone has a job to do, have like several jobs to do.
Everyone's got 8 hats to wear. You got to go."
Yeah. That's one thing that I found very interesting from the Army is that Army has very homogenous units until you get to the headquarters level.
Yeah.
right? So you have an entire unit of infantry, you have an entire unit of armor, and so
Hmm.
it's a very which is, by the way, I don't know if you know, that's why the Navy uses rates, whereas the Army just has ranks.
Hmm.
Whereas we incorporate our jobs into our description. So I was an
Right.
ETC was
Oh yeah,
my
the name tags are like long.
yeah. Yeah, well, and it's because because we incorporate our jobs, right?
Right.
When you get to large deck ships, it becomes really confusing because you have relatively homogenous, you know, divisions. So I was a
Right.
division. I was the repair officer, so I was in charge of repair division with 50 sailors working for me, 40 hull technicians, and 10 machinery repairmen. And I was one of the few divisions that had multiple rates. There were divisions of hundreds of people of the same rate, so it's weird when you're like MM1, like 6 people turn around. It's like, MM2, 25 people turn around, right? But whereas in the Army you have that because you say, "Hey, Sergeant," and then wait, everyone that's E5 and above turns around.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
except
It's
the
like,
first sergeants and the
how
sergeant
dare you
majors.
use my first name in front of me?
Yeah.
Such a-
So, but I mean, yeah, it's funny. So, when little background, I did
yeah.
do a year playing Army, and it was great being a chief in the U.S. Navy,
Hmm.
working in a joint operations, because obviously, if you've worked with our friends that all they do is sit in a chair, their chief is an E9.
Hmm.
So, whenever I spoke to the Air Force over the phone, I was an E9.
That's
And then the
great.
amount of times that I started getting that people called me sir when I spoke to Army because I was a chief, which obviously that's your
Right.
warrant officers. So it was
Oh,
great because being a
terminology stuff.
telephone chief was
The best of
yeah
the of getting it wrong though is still like I was in the Pentagon for a little while and someone would call and say, "Hey, you got Captain so and so." I'm like, "That's a different captain. That's different." I
yeah
mean, because like that's me. I don't think they're gonna. I'm the assistant at the desk here. I don't think they're so like my friend in college, her dad was the chaplain on the Enterprise, and so yeah, he's a captain. I'm like, oh, that's cool. And then when they came back after I think their O2 or O3 deployment, something like that, I went up there to visit and meet him. So I'm like, oh, I'm glad you're a chaplain because I totally screwed this up.
yeah
So it's an
yeah
awkward
that's
moment.
that's yeah. When you think captain, yeah, I mean I know that when you like if you were to pick up the phone and call like a Navy lodge, say this
Yeah,
is Captain Womack,
yeah,
right? Oh yes sir,
they
yeah,
did. I did that. They were so like,
yeah.
oh, we got to get this guy a room. I'm like, no, sorry, O3 cat. Oh, yeah, we have your rooms. I'm like,
Yeah.
dang it. Because I was trying to move on
Yeah.
base. I was trying to move on. Where was I trying to? I was trying to move to Fort Myer, and they're like, "Are you Army captain or Navy captain?" I'm like, "I'm an Army captain." I'm like,
so dejected.
it
Yeah.
really is.
Well,
It's like,
it's
dang it.
yeah.
That's
So
funny.
so
But
it's funny. We had a Navy captain that was our father when we did my training in '07. Uh, we had we brought the FOB commander for the base that my unit was going to. He was not attached to us. So he was going to be the FOB commander and his FOB command master chief sergeant major equivalent,
mhm.
right? And so they went through our training. We went over there, and one of the comments was is that he refused to let the Army guys call him captain, made them all call him colonel,
I
so that
love
they
it.
understood to get them mentally
Oh
prepared.
yeah.
Um, so here's my great another great captain story. So I'm in training in Camp McGregor, and the same captain is walking around, and a group of soldiers failed to salute my captain who's with us, right?
Hmm.
Captain Roll was his name. Call sign Tootsie. He was a Rio. He was Goose in F-14s. Um, and so I, of course, being the chief petty officer, in the Navy, chief petty officers are gods, and
Hmm.
our job is to enforce the standards of all enlisted sailors. Does not matter if they're
Hmm.
yours or not, right? Like that's
Right.
one of our
Yeah.
we are charged with that. We're also charged with mentorship of all sailors too. And so I run over to this group of soldiers, and I like hey hey
Guys.
specialists. I'm like, do you not salute full bird colonels in the United States Army? And he goes, yeah, yes, sir. I'm like, I'm a chief, God damn it. And he goes, what about so why aren't you saluting my full bird captain? So of course they're all like petrified, like, I'm sorry. Like they run off, right? Because I was a brand new chief full of piss
Right.
and vinegar at this point, right? So the very next day, we go walking around and everyone is saluting every sailor that
It's,
has a bird on their rank insignia. And they said, don't forget to salute the half bird captains, right? Which is every E4 through E6.
oh, I know. Oh, I've saluted when I was a young private. I probably saluted 4 or 5 E4s, and like because like
Yeah,
this one kid when I was at Bagram in Afghanistan. I don't know why he was there, what his job was doing, what there was, who knows, but like we don't ever see Navy anywhere, and so like
yeah,
and then when you're in the fatigues and stuff, the camouflage on y'all's uniform was actually worked, unlike ours. Ours
yeah,
was like glow in the dark. And so you couldn't see. All you see is like this outline of like something. And oh my God, this dude's like 45 years old, so it just kind of matched, you know.
yeah.
And we're like, he's like, I've probably said him twice. I'm like, God damn it, I fell for it again. It's so
Yeah.
embarrassing. I can't tell. It's
Oh,
probably the
okay.
funniest thing to watch is to see because we don't know. Like it's so interesting. Like there's always every branch has like these the Marines were pretty much in line with as far as the ranks pretty much match all the way up. There's a
Yeah,
few variances like first sergeant stuff's a different path and stuff, but the officer ranks match all the way up.
yeah.
And then the Air Force is the officer side's the same as
Yep.
far as what they
But the
call them,
enlisted is
but this
weird
side's super confusing.
because they're,
You know,
yeah.
well, they're always one stripe less or one stripe more, I think, than what their E rank is. Like
Yeah, it's stripes plus one equals their E rank.
right. And so
Um,
like we're always like we'd see something else and it's upside down to us too, which is even more confusing. So
yeah,
it's always fun to see the differences. I haven't figured out, I have no idea what any of the Space Force ranks are. I'm like I checked out right when that happened. I'm like, I'm done. My 20 years are
yeah.
here and
Well,
I'm out.
yeah, I couldn't tell you. I know it's a similar scheme, but the ranks actually match a little bit more with the Army ranks. Like E5 is
Yeah.
sergeant instead of staff sergeant, which is
Right.
weird with the Air Force.
Oh,
It was funny when I was when in 2007 because I was assigned to a Navy battalion that left me behind in Kuwait to be the liaison officer while they went up to Camp Buka, and so we were a blend of Navy. Well, there were me and one other Navy guy. There was mostly soldiers. There were a few Air Force, and so I got tasked one time of doing the 4 services ranks as a training exercise
hmm
for training. And I went through and I went like, the all the other 3 services, the Air Force, the Army, like I did the officers all together for,
hmm
the other services because they're all the same, right? And then did the enlisted and the Marines. It was very easy to the Marines and the Army like side by side, and the Air
Right.
Force a little bit different. Then did the Navy completely different. And it was like I went through the 12 enlisted
Yeah.
E3 and below ranks,
Yeah.
right? And I made it look crazy complicated, talking about the ranks and the rates and all that
That's
stuff. And then
awesome.
I had one slide. I said the Navy has 5 ranks. I'm like, what do you mean it has 5? E3 and below, no insignia. You call them by their last name. Don't even
Yep.
give them a rank.
That's
I said, if they've got a little birdie, I don't care how many stripes they are. It's it's petty officer. If they've got an anchor, it's chief. They'll correct if they're senior chief or mass chief. And then our officers come in 2 flavors, sir and ma'am. And they use the same insignia.
that's
And it was like, they were
same.
like, that's it. I said, yep. I said, we'll teach you everything else. Don't worry about if it's a GM2 or whatever. Just
Yeah.
call him petty officer.
That's
And
actually they should teach that like that because that makes way more sense because I mean because if I'm an E4 and you're an E4 and we're somehow having to work together, like you want to get to that point of like how do we communicate, because the armies we keep it simple in the like what's the
yep,
fewest amount of words and syllables we can say to get this through. Like we're like I can't say chief petty officer every single time. I'm just going to call you
yeah,
Schneider. Like this is,
yeah,
it's we got to get to the short thing first, or if it's too long, you get the shenanigan nickname that sticks for you forever. And
yeah.
so,
So one of the things that's really interesting about the chief petty officer rank in the U.S. Navy is that we have like plaques, and I'll say ask the chief, right? That's one of the big
mhm,
things that we're known for, is that we're supposed to be ask the chief. And what was great was that I had developed a reputation being the nuclear guy I am, right? I pull up procedures and policies and documents, and I get to the point of memorizing them. And my CEO, where I work right now, when I quote the new Australian law, he first he's going into preacher mode because I literally cite it chapter and verse out of the law and then quote it. So that's just the nuclear brain
Yeah.
working, and then also being a chief at the time. So I remember I'm sitting in this big tent. I don't know if you've ever been to Ali Salim, but I was in
Oh
tent
yeah.
two, right? So I was in tent two where all the liaison officers were, and the big talk was, and the ID cards, and there's
Oh
all
yeah.
these different things that went around there. And I remember one time hearing a soldier that was not with the group that I was with, hey, let's go ask the chief, right? And kept hearing that, and they were talking about me every time. It's like, let's go ask the chief, he knows. And I'm like, all right. I'm like, sure. I thought that was fun. The other thing I found really interesting about the Army is coins go a long
Oh yeah.
way more than the Navy. So I
Oh yeah.
remember I worked for TTF, Tried Trading Facility, Bangor, Washington. So Tried Trading Facility, Trident being a missile system. It's the big ballistic. It's the West Coast Ballistic Missile Submarine Training
Mm-hmm.
Center. We actually have 4 working tubes for the ballistic missiles that are actually covered under the START treaties,
Yeah.
so they could periodically be inspected by the Russians, type thing.
Yeah.
Like that's a level
That's
that we
that one.
really
And
train.
is it the freedom of flight thing as well? They fly over and take
Yeah,
pictures with. Yeah, same. I think it's the
open
same treaty.
skies.
Open skies. Yes, it's the same
Yeah,
treaty. I think. Yeah.
yeah. So we have this big giant 400,000 square foot building, but yeah. So I grabbed a bunch of the coins. I remember at the time they're $3.50, cheapest coin anywhere, right? And I bought just like dozens of them.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I literally was walking up, like, I remember I just gotten a major altercation with this one sergeant. We'd like just yelling at each other back and forth, absolutely pissed off. He finally got what I wanted. And I thanked him. I freaking gave him a coin. And anytime there was something that didn't require a signature, I got first dibs on. I don't know why. We literally were like about to like throw down and beat each other up. Right. But I gave him a coin, and he's like, he goes, hey, Chief, I just got a shipment of Crystal Light packets in. I got 6 boxes of lemonade if you want them. I'm like, I'm on my way.
I got pink lemonade.
Yeah, but you know how like they were worth their weight in gold, right? Those little Crystal Light packets. So I kept it. I hoarded those, and they became gifts to my soldiers and all that stuff. But yeah, like it was crazy. And then one of my great things was the time that I committed several hundred crimes or several hundred international treaty violations, just because the Iraqis showed up in Kuwait because Task Force 134 decided they were going to just send people through Kuwait to get back to Iraq because it was just easier, because they're trying to get into Camp Bucca, which was down in southeast Iraq. And so it was easier to fly them from Baghdad to Kuwait, bus them through Kuwait onto Kuwaiti sovereign soil, right? To get them onto helos to fly them into Bucca. They did this 3 times, and these poor soldiers, they were coming in. So it's Ramadan, right? So of course that makes it a bigger challenge. So dining facility closes before the sun goes down, and they're trying to feed all these, these Iraqis with 3 soldiers guarding them.
Gosh.
And I remember running through it. I'm like, Task Force 134 fell under my purview, and the soldiers had no idea that I was their responsibility. All they saw was Navy.
Yeah.
Right. But I'm sitting there like, hey, what do you need? Yeah. Well, I got heads up they were coming in, so I greeted them when they arrived. I got them set up at their tents. Like I was, it was a corporal. It was a corporal and 2 specialists, right? They were in charge. And I remember like I'm running around with this this corporal and these 2, I'm running with the corporal. Those 2 specialists are watching the Iraqis. I'm like, all right, what do we need? I said, do you have bedding? Let's go get bedding, right? And the Navy ran the customs unit. So I'm like, they were able to get bedding, so that wasn't an issue. I made sure they went to the billets, but then they needed food for all these guys. And so running to the customs battalion, I'm like, I walk up to my friend, I'm like, I can't remember his name. It's like, hey, John, I need a favor for you. He goes, I need enough meals that don't have pork in them to feed 31 Middle Eastern folks. I didn't say Iraqis. Be very careful. And he goes, all right, next thing I know, I've got a couple of sailors that are rolling in with these meals and running up there. And I'm like, I'm like, hey, all right, what food do you want? To these 3 soldiers. And I was like, walked up to I connected to the dining facility. I said, hey, I need 3 hot meals for these 3 soldiers because they don't need to eat cold meals. I'll give that to the Iraqis because these guys are being screwed. And I'm like, I'm hand delivering this food to them. And this corporal goes to me, goes, Chief, why are you taking care of me like this? I said, because you need help. Yeah. I said, no other reason than that. And he goes, what? And he goes, we're not even in the same unit, let alone the same service. He goes, no, you need help. This is how I told him, I said, let me tell you something about the Navy. I said, when I made chief, one of the things I was tasked with was identifying what the U.S. enema anchor stood with. This
Hmm.
chief that gave me that tasking said, our own personal version of it,
Hmm.
understanding sailors' needs, right? And he goes, in the United States Navy as chiefs, we are tasked with taking care of not just mentoring, identifying issues, correcting issues, discipline, all those things of every sailor in the United States Navy and our officers, right? That's our charge. I said, USN for me stands for United Service Now. You get that same treatment from me as a chief, whether you're a corporal in the United States Army, a lance corporal in the United States Marine Corps, a technical sergeant in the United States Air Force. I don't care. You are my soldier, right? And he was like, and I go, and I want you to remember this. And when you're a sergeant first class
Yeah.
and you see a soldier in need, you take care of that soldier.
Yeah.
And so I
Well,
think that was one of those meaningful impacts that
it's
could
a cool moment.
help show, yeah,
We're
kind
the,
of
we're the
show that
same.
culture.
We're the same flag at the
Yeah.
end of the day. That's the we can be fun and jazzy, but I think people don't understand that we're on the same team at times. It's like, no, we have to help each other because it gets ridiculous.
Yeah.
So, well, man, this is this
Yeah.
is this is crazy. You gotta. I gotta get you back on the show sometime. We could probably talk for days because it's
Yeah.
I love
Yeah,
it.
I can. Well, and
No,
it's well, you with the army background. I like kind of going to the army stories
yeah.
because I have to give, when we had talked before and talked about the 3 hour backstory, I have to
Yeah.
give the 3 hour
Oh
backstory
yeah.
to the army stories. Now I do want to tell you what was really fun about having done that deployment.
Do
So
tell.
I submitted my limited duty officer package while on deployment. I tracked down the one LDO in country to get my interview. I do interviews with 3 officers. I found the one guy to do the interviews, and then I had reservist construction battalion officers that did the other two. And I had letters of recommendation
Hmm.
from Army colonels and light colonels. Like, it was great. So I had this crazy unique package when I submitted it. The warrant officer from my command back in the States, he goes, "This is the strongest package I've ever seen in my career,"
Nice.
which
Nailed
was
it.
awesome.
Yeah.
And he was a W4, right? And there's, like there's only like 6 W5s in the Navy. So there's not many W4s even.
That's
So he
awesome.
was like, "This is the strongest package I've ever seen for warrant officer or LD." I was like, "Because this is freaking amazing." So I go through, I submit, I get selected when I get back, and every nuclear officer in the U.S. Navy gets interviewed by the director of naval nuclear propulsion,
Hmm.
who is a 4-star admiral, right?
No,
So
no,
if you want to
no,
go yeah,
no, no
no
threat.
pressure, right? Now the interview is not one interview. You have interviews
Right.
with the with his uh, with what are they we call them the alphabet soup, but so he's got all these senior executives. So they're all SESs or Navy
Hmm.
captains, but none of them were in naval reactors. The only people that wear uniforms are guests, the admiral, the bull nuke, which is our sergeant major equivalent,
Hmm.
and then his chief of staff. Right. So everyone else wears civilian attire. I'm
Hmm.
literally being escorted around by O5s in civilian clothes. Right. Like
Awesome.
that's like, it's crazy. Um, so you don't know, right? So you may be, but knowing when you do these technical interviews, it's with SCSs, which are, obviously, equivalent to like senior 06s to 07s, 08s, right? And, Navy captains, you have no idea what they are, right? And so there's 31 of us going through these interviews, and everyone's going through their technical interviews. And I use the air quotes for
Right.
this. And we have the schedule going through these round robins, and I had to go through 3 of these interviews. And everyone's sitting there and they're talking about, "Oh my God, I had to freaking draw this system." And they're asking me these questions. Like, they're very technical to
Yeah.
everyone. This is April of '08. I just got back from my deployment in January of '08. So I come in, I'm literally sporting my submarine dolphins on top, my Navy achievement medals flanked by my 2 ARCOMs and Army achievement
Yeah.
medal. And then where I would normally wear my submarine strategic deterrence pin, I have my Army combat action badge on there, right? So I'm literally riddled with Army things on my uniform,
I love it.
right? So I go walking into these technical interviews, and they're like, "Remember, these guys have never spoken to someone who's even served in the Army, let alone someone who's in the Navy who did a combat deployment."
With the army, pretty much. So,
My technical interviews were, "What was it like over there?" Right? So it's just me telling stories,
I love it. So
right? And then,
you all worked up and study. You're like, oh, we're talking about all that's lean. All right, great. I got that one down
well,
pat.
yeah, well, it was so funny because then I'm like coming in there and everyone's like, oh my gosh, that was so brutal. And I'm like, I'm like,
Yeah.
I did get one technical question, and I'm so mad at the way that the guy asked the question, because there's a in a nuclear reactor with something called an estimated critical position, which is a calculation you have to do to determine when you're starting up a reactor when it's going to go online. It's just a giant math equation. There's all these assumptions, and he wanted me to ask what the assumptions for that were, and I'm listing them off. I can't go into the details of that
Right.
for classified reasons, but I was hoping he was going to ask me what makes up an ECP, because
Yeah.
I was going to literally draw him an entry control point. And when he got done with that, I said, I'm so mad that you didn't say ECP, because then I said I was going to describe you what an entry control point was. He goes, well, describe it to me. So I'm literally drawing what, how you have the 1 to 2 soldiers up front, you have the Constantine, you have the serpentine,
Right.
so that you can stop them, so you can, with the kill zone, so that you can destroy them before they can get on the base and blow
That's
up
great.
and do the real damage. It's like, that's awesome. Like, yeah. And so then I go to my interview with the admiral, and the interviews take 90 seconds. By the way, you find out the results. You literally walk out and you get the results within 60 seconds of whether what level you get, because there's different grades that we have,
Right.
or whether we even are maintaining in the program. Some guys get kicked out of the nuclear program after their interviews, which is pretty terrifying. That they made it that long and then are not qualified as an officer and then get removed from their enlisted status. But so you go in, and I was 16, so I was exactly in the middle. And everyone's talking through, like, yeah, the admiral, the stupid little litany you have to give about yourself. I'm, Chief Schneider. I'm from this town. I went to, served on this boat. These are my like this litany, and then you end your litany with "and my commissioning date is," and then you give your commissioning date. And everyone before me that had gone through, they completed. They said, "and my commissioning date is," and you say the date, and he looks up and starts asking questions. So remember, I have the unique record.
Right.
So I walk through that door, and the admiral is just staring me down. Right? He's just right staring at me. I'm like stumbling through my words because it's different. Right? And then I go, I sit down, and my commissioning date is, 1 November 2008. And then he starts asking me questions and all that. And then it was just like, again, my interview was not about nuclear. It was about deployments and going and doing times and all that. And it was just interesting because doing that transformed the way my career was. I also learned the Army and Navy speak very different languages.
Oh yeah, big time. It's a different technical ease. There's a word for that, I'm sure. So because we don't. The Army has some parts that are very technical, like the maintenance side, obviously. The helicopter maintenance, particularly, obviously. But I wasn't aware of. We joke. I was a logistics officer, enlisted infantry, and then the Army's Infinite Wisdom, maybe logistics. And but we had to do a course at Fort Eustis, and they're all like, there's like 10 billion warrants on Fort Eustis. And they're like, we have more boats in the Navy. I'm like, boats and ships, words matter. I was like, these are little bitty boats, and I was like, we can put a whole bunch on it. I thought was fascinating was getting to be a part of this. Just a very few Army officers do that. It's all warrants, But if you are lucky to be a platoon leader or whatever over there, and the boating part of it is the ship to ship transfer for like food.
Yeah.
I was like, it's a good thing the Navy runs this, because if we ran it, we would totally screw this up. Like we're very good at blowing things up.
So when I was on board Abraham Lincoln, I had to qualify to drive the ship. So I had to qualify officer of the deck. And so I stood conning officer a lot. I have done a lot of scary things just through operations of nuclear reactors. Like, you have a lot of energy and all that, that you're managing. The scariest thing I've ever done was driving an aircraft carrier while alongside, because you keep 180-foot separation. Right. And like, you're literally like doing these minor tweaks, minor like courses, because the supply ship sets a course and maintains that course. Right. And then it's the receiving ship that maneuvers and adjusts. So supply ship is just set. And then you're sitting here just nonstop tweaking. And it's, you're having to adjust speed, speed up, speed down, speed up, speed down, right? Because you got these, and it's just,
Tables.
I got done at 15 minutes of driving and I was sweating through my
Yeah.
uniform.
It's like white knuckling to the Rockies with the RV. It's like,
Yeah.
screw this up. This thing is not cheap.
Yeah.
So,
Well, and we did, so to give you an idea, like it was maybe it's 30 minutes at a time, but I remember it was just like you could not wait to get done. And when we did our offload when we went through Gibraltar, we did our offload with our ammo ship to offload all of our munitions.
mm-hmm.
We were doing this 12 hours a day, right? We
Wow.
drove the ship. We were doing unrep 12 hours a day, sending supplies across. So it was freaking crazy.
Yeah.
It was just mind boggling. Yeah, it was just fascinating from that perspective. I mean, and it is really cool. Fort Eustis is great. I love
Yeah.
it. I used to live being stationed
Yeah.
down in that area. It was such a cool place. I used to take my kids to the museum that was there, and friends and family.
Yeah.
Like, let's go. And I was telling my family, like, what do you want to see? Do you want to see aircraft? Do you want to see ships, or do you want to see Army stuff? They're like, we have choices. I said, well, we can go to the Air Force base. Yeah, you go to the Air Force Base. You go to Langley and you see the giant B-52 that's a monument plane.
Right.
We could go over down to Naval Station Norfolk and get you on there. We could walk by all the ships, or I go to Fort Eustis and we take you to the Transportation Museum there. They're like, what do you want?
Yeah.
They're like, airplanes. Okay, let's go to Langley then.
That sounds awesome. So can't go wrong there.
Yeah.
So, well, Mark, man, it's been a lot of fun. We'll have to get together again sometime and chat it up. I would love to learn more. It's just fun for me to learn because you do 20 years in one branch and you almost never see the other branch outside for me, the Air Force, and they hated talking to us on the radio because we use grid reference and they use lat and long. And those are a pain to convert. They don't like it. So, but I highly enjoyed this. And for those that are out there, I'm sure there's a lot of reminiscing on days on the ship. And I hope what Mark's gotten to share, what I've gotten to share, small bit of knowledge, helps with any kind of coping and hopefully get a good laugh out of it as well. So, but Mark, thanks again. Any closing comments before we go?
It's been a lot of fun. And next time I'm back, you have to ask me about my super realistic dream while on deployment, where I spent my life, where I literally did a day on a submarine,
Okay.
in my dreams. So yeah, we'll have to talk about
like
that because I know from your perspective, you're trying to get people to understand kind of their psychology and think about that. This is one of those things where you can have those real world, super realistic, events that occur in your mind.
Oh yeah.
So, yeah.
Then wake up and like, so
yeah,
awesome.
Yeah, absolutely.
So well, thanks a lot. If you're new to the show, haven't subscribed, by all means, please do. And otherwise, we'll see you on the next episode. Thanks again, Mark.